when we talk about impacts, again, going back to Rachel's talk, she mentioned the word SDGs. What that means is that the UN sat down a few years back, 5-ish years back, with a committee and came up with 17 sustainable development goals. About 20 years ago, 25 years ago, they had come up with the millennial goals. This is the sequel. It's the sustainable development goals. So what they did is they took all the big problems of the world, all the issues that need to get solved, and they formed them into 17 buckets. And there are sub goals under each of these. I don't know anybody who ever looks at the sub goals. As impact investors, what's good about this is that now we have a common language. So now when we sit in a room as impact investors and we say, well, what's your interest? Instead of everybody making up their own words trying to describe what they do, they say, well, I really like I invest in gender inequality, right? Or I invest in affordable and clean energy, or I invest in just reducing inequalities in general. And really often in terms of institutions, they're pulling up numbers, right? I mentioned Africa Eats, my Pan-African holding company. We work on goals 2, 1, and 0. I want to explain why I added 0 in there. But literally, we just start off with the picture of 2 and 1. And then when we're talking out with investors, they know what that means. It's really, really convenient to be able to say this. And at the same time, it's not detailed enough. So if we just talk about water, let's just go to 6, clean water and sanitation. That's a big space, clean water and sanitation. So we want drinking water and we want to handle the effluent that comes out of the people. That's not usually the same company doing both sides of that. And when we talk about water, there's other issues around water. What about access to water? What about water for the plants and the farms? Where does that fall? Right? Is that 15 life on land? Is that 13 climate action, or is that 6 clean water and sanitation? So what happens in reality is as you go down and try and figure out, well, which goals does that particular company or fund tackle, you start to get into some gray areas. Nonetheless, it's lovely to have these around. The question then came, well, which ones should I care about? And I've been in the room with impact investors and we've done the exercise. Pick 3. Pick any 3 you want, but just what's your top 3? And some people say all of them. I'm one of those investors. I'll invest in anything on this list. And 33% of investors in this survey said they'll invest in anything on this list. But not everybody said that. The other 2/3 of the people said, no, I like this, 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 and this. What you're seeing here is a graph from another one of my organizations called investorflow.org. It's a network of 500 impact investors from around the world. And we ask them, this is one of the questions we ask when you join the network, what are your favorite SDGs? And so this is, to my knowledge, the first and only survey that shows the popularity of the SDGs for investors. And then what's really fascinating to me as an analyst is we've broken this down by funds and families, and we were able to do a survey of a smaller number of philanthropists to see what their interests were. And all that's available on investorflow.org. I'm not going to go into that today. This network, as I said, is about 500 people, 489 answered the survey. They're scattered around the world, a preponderance in the US, because I think, best we can tell, there's a preponderance of impact investors in the US. And then what else is interesting about them in terms of differences between impact investing and traditional investing is that impact investors don't always invest at home. So if let's just focus on Africa, because we're here looking at Africa. We get 28 investors in this network in sub-Saharan Africa and 9 more in North Africa and the Middle East. But when we ask, where do you invest? Boom, we get 146 investors in this crowd say they invest in Africa. Right, so the number went down in the US, it was 300 and change. It went up in Africa, it went up in Asia, it went up in Latin America, it went up in Europe. Impact investors tend not to invest in their home place. They tend to invest in the global South, right? And that doesn't count the 126 people who said, I invest anywhere in the world. They invest in the global South because that's where the impact is, right? A lot of money. You can see here from this survey, and I've seen other surveys that look the same. the number one place outside the US for impact investing is Africa. And that's my number one place as well. And I'll tell you, it's number one because the opportunities are humongous, because so much is needed. So little infrastructure exists. It's hard not to have an impact doing investing in Africa.